Here we go. So this is Dr. Rox's myofascial release using the foam roller class. And everybody just needs a foam roller. So here's my foam roller. There's different types of foam rollers that we talk about just a little bit. But foam roller can be used in several different ways. The main one, and the one that we're going to focus on, is self-massage. You can also use it as an aid in stretching and mobilization. We're going to talk just a tiny bit about that. And then it can also be used for strengthening, and specifically it can be used really in a great way for core work, and I'm going to touch on that just a little bit. But our main focus today is going to be the massage and myofascial release and myofascial trigger point work. So I had a question, what is myofascial? So myofascial is just a combination of myo, which is the root for muscle, and fascial, which is fascia. And fascia is a covering that's around all our muscles, and there's fascial planes all the way throughout our body. And that's what we're getting to is that fascia. And if we can loosen up that fascia, our whole systems are going to work better. We're going to be able to move more easily. And trigger points. I said myofascial trigger point work. What's a trigger point? Well, a trigger point is just an area of taut fiber that refers pain elsewhere. And if you apply pressure directly on that trigger point, it can release and go away. So a lot of what we're going to be doing is finding trigger points as we roll and just hanging out there and allowing it to release through deep breathing. A couple things to keep in mind before we start doing the work. Listen to your body and its capabilities. There may be things that are too painful, or too hard, or the position that you need to get in might be a little difficult. So don't do that. And there's always ways to make it a little bit easier. There's ways you can support your body so that there's not so much pressure on certain points. So I'll talk about that as we go. But it can be painful, and that is okay. But what you want to do is if you find a spot that's painful, you can hang out there, roll a little bit from side to side at that spot, and take some deep breaths. And if you can release that trigger point in 5 or 6 deep breaths, that's great. If not, then move on to another point, and you might be able to revisit that later. But it should be able to just release and feel better after a short period of time. It's really important to utilize your core muscles when you're doing the work, as well as when you're transitioning from one position to another position. Super important. And there's some times when you're really holding up your body and you've got to use your core to keep your spine safe. So important, and I will remind you of that. Performing the work slowly and mindfully, and breathing. Deep breath the whole time you're doing this is very important. And just progress gradually. You don't have to do the hardest things the first time. You don't have to do it for a really long time. So back off if you think it's a little bit too painful. Back off. Don't do too much. Take extra care if you're working on your head or your neck or your spine, just because those are more fragile positions and places. So be careful with that. And do it daily, and do it especially before exercise. It's great. I did it yesterday before I went for a bike ride. And I have to say, my muscles felt looser. I felt like I was able to move a little bit easier. So the basic directions for any kind of myofascial release work on the foam roller is that you place the foam roller, you place your body on the foam roller, and you roll up and down a muscle. Basically, it's pretty simple. You find a tight spot and you hang out there. And as you find that tight spot, you can kind of roll back and forth over it, see what position is the most advantageous for you. And you can also introduce some body movement. So like if you're doing a rolling out your quads, your front of your thighs, you can bend your knee and straighten your knee, and that's going to get into a little bit deeper. So that's a nice thing you can do, and I'll talk about that as we go. And I think one of the most important things is use your intuition. If I'm telling you to put the roller in a certain way, and then you think, wow, maybe I should try it a little bit differently and that feels better, go for it. And if you wanted to introduce some different kinds of movements, go for it. That's fine. That's great. That's good. Just wanted to touch a little bit on the types of rollers. There's, I think the best rollers are the marbled, green and blue marbled rollers, because they're very, very durable, but they're also a little bit softer than the black rollers. So those are the best, and they're also the most expensive. I have a black roller, which is this one, and it's very durable, but it's a little bit hard, and so it might be a little bit more painful than the marble roller. And then the white rollers are a little bit softer, which is great, but they're also not as durable. They'll change position, they'll change shape after a while. So and they're also the least expensive. So those are the choices that you have. Also, different height, different lengths. Mine is the standard 3 foot, 1 meter kind of length. You put two of those together and know how far you need to stay away from people right now. You can also there's shorter ones, which will work for almost everything except the first thing that we're going to be doing. So that's the different types of foam rollers. So let's get to some exercises. We're going to start with the foam vertical, and what you want to do, I'm going to move the computer. I think that's going to work. So what you want to do is put your foam roller right behind you, and then you want to sit on the foam roller. So your butt's on the foam roller. And Mom, one's going to be a little bit different for you. I would say just put the foam roller from here on up. Okay? My mom has a shorter roller, so I'm speaking to her. And so it's the other half of my. Okay, use that one for this part. Yeah. Okay, so now you're just going to kind of roll down, and you want your head to definitely be on the roller. Okay, so that's your starting position. Palms up, arms on the ground, and then check in. Just take a couple breaths. And feel where your body is touching the foam roller. Where is it touching your head? Is your neck touching at all? Where is it touching your mid-spine, your mid-back? And does it feel equal from side to side? Is it touching your low back at all? And then where is it touching your sacrum? How do your abdominal muscles feel? So one thing I want to just make sure that you've got is the head position. What a common thing is to have your chin too high up, like so. So you want really the back of your head to be on the foam roller. You might want to tuck your chin in just a little bit. That's a good position for your head for this one. And then just roll side to side a little bit. Get into those little paraspinal muscles. And I'm moving just with my core. I'm moving my legs. I'm moving my knees back and forth a little bit to get the movement. If you find a spot that's a little bit sore, you can move. Just kind of get in touch. See if one side feels the same as the other. See what happens if you go just a little bit further. I can get into a little bit of stuff in my shoulder blade area. And we're going to get to these areas in different ways. So this is just kind of checking in. And then the last thing you want to do is do some arm movements. Or first of all, let's just do a stretch of your arms. So bring your arms straight out from your shoulders and hands down, backs of your hands down. And you should feel a pretty nice stretch across your pectoral muscles. Great, great stretch. And if you want more, this feels like enough. Hang out here for a few breaths. If you want more, you can put your arms into cactus position, goal post position, whatever you want to call it. And for me, my elbows don't touch the ground quite. My fingertips almost touch the ground, but that's pretty tough for my shoulders. That's a big stretch for me across the pectorals. And from here, you can kind of move up and down to get a big stretch. Okay, and then one more thing I wanted to show you from this position is just touch into the core work that is possible to do. So you can put your hands down on the ground, or you can put your hands not on the ground. Much harder if you aren't supporting with your hands. And so what I want to do is just put some tension, put some weight into my feet. And what I want to do is just slowly, with control, not moving anything in my core, lift one knee up and then down. Now, obviously, it's a lot easier with your hands down, but still you should feel your core working. And I find it very interesting. It's always been the case that it's much harder on one side for me than the other side. So that's the movement that you want to do. Okay, so we're going to come off of this, and you need to know how to dismount. So the best way to dismount is to just kind of roll off to the side. You're on your side now, and then you can sit up. Okay, so next, we're going to put the foam roller crosswise, and we're going to do a little bit of neck work. Got to be a little bit careful with this. And if it's not comfortable for you, don't do this one. But what you want to do is lie down and have the foam roller just right underneath your neck. So it's touching the base of your skull. And all we're going to do here is go from side to side. And you should feel those muscles in the right below your skull, the suboccipital muscles, getting a little bit of a massage. Should feel good. And then you can kind of tuck your chin a little bit, back a little bit. Be careful with this because, again, the spine is a fragile area. So that's the neck. Let's move on. And again, the best way to get up is kind of on your side, push yourself up. And then we're going to go to the mid-back. So in this case, you want to put your foam roller so that as you come back, it's going to land just below your shoulder blades. And then you're just going to come back. Put your hands behind your head, but don't pull on your head. And then you're going to lift your hips up just a little bit, and you're going to roll from the top of your shoulder blades to the bottom of your rib cage. Now that's a pretty big movement. And if you want to, and if it's easier for you logistically, just kind of roll out the top part first. You can go from side to side a little bit. If you find a spot that's sore, hang out there. And then I go into the middle part. And I'm using my core to hold my hips up. And then to the bottom part. And especially down here, I kind of use my core. And you can go the whole way if you want to. Slow, take some deep breaths. I'm not breathing very well because I'm talking. I kind of roll up a little bit as I get down to my lower ribs. And then you can go a little bit side to side, just a little bit. Okay, and then put your hips down for just a moment. And the next position is going to be the same position, but we're going to work more on our shoulder blades. So it's the same starting position here. You actually don't even have to lift your hips up on this. So put that about kind of the middle of your, or the lower part of your shoulder blade. Lean a little bit to the left, lifting your hips or not. And then you're going to roll just kind of between your shoulder blade and your spine. You're getting those rhomboid muscles. And in this one, if you do a little bit of movement of your arm, you can get into some more good stuff. And then you can go to the other side. Oh, there's my spot. So I find a nice trigger point there. So I find a trigger point. It's just an area that I feel it in the front of my shoulder. And so I'm just going to hang out there, do a little movement of my arm, roll side to side, take some deep breaths. And feel it release. So that's that between the shoulder blade and the spine area. Okay, come on up. And the next one we're going to do is the lats. So the lat muscles are these big muscles that start up here and then go down and attach into the thoracolumbar fascia, which is that transition area between the lumbar and the thoracic spine. So that's what we're going to work on at this point. So you're going to be on your side, and you want the roller to be kind of in your armpit. So that's the position. And then you want your, you can put your foot like this, whatever's comfortable for your feet. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to roll from our armpit down, your ribs, a little bit in the back. And this is really intense for me. Now, if you want to make it less intense, you can use your elbow, your your down elbow. So I find a spot right in here, and I'm just going to roll back and forth on that. Breathe. You can also go front and back from there. Oh. That's really intense for me. And all the way up, and all the way down. So that's the lat. And guess what? We have one on the other side. So let's go the other side, the other lat. So starting point, just kind of lower armpit area. And then we're going to roll, And right there's a spot for me. And if I put my hip down, it's going to be softer. If I raise myself up on my elbow a little bit, it's going to be not so intense. But again, I'm just going to hang out there. And whatever movement makes sense to you, try back and forth a little bit. Oh. Find a spot, hang out there. Tell me how much time. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's enough lat. So the next one is the back of the outside part of the shoulder blade. There's some really great spots in here. These are the shoulder external rotators, that the rotator cuff that can get really, really tight on people. So this position is you're going to be on your side, and you're gonna basically put that kind of in the lateral part of your shoulder blade, and you're gonna. This position is hard to explain, but you're gonna hold your head like so, and my elbow is just a little bit off or to the outside of the roller, and then find those areas. It's just a little bit of movement, kind of on the outside of your shoulder blade, up to your arm. Oh, and this again also is very intense for me. And I find a spot. Now there's a couple things that you can do. If you're comfortable just holding your head up, you can move your arm into internal and external rotation. That's pretty intense. You can go forward and back a little bit. That's pretty intense too. And then up and down again. That one's a great one for me. I should do this one every day. Do I? No, not really. Oh. And I just moved to a little bit closer to my arm, and there's a great spot. Okay, and we have another one. So let's try the other side. So, just like that. And then we're going to roll right along the outside edge of the scapula. Oh. Yeah, that external and internal rotation is kind of interesting for me. And again, use your intuition. And rolling back really gets it for me too. And breathe. Okay. All right. Let's do, this is fun and pretty simple, but I like it. It's for your forearms. So you can just be in this position, and you just put your forearms at your elbows on the roller. And you can do 3 different hand positions. Let's start with your palms facing each other, and then just roll. And if you find a spot that's kind of tender, then you can hold there and you can what's called pronate and supinate your wrists. And then the other two positions are hands up and roll. And then hands down and roll. You can move your arms, your wrists up and down. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to the lower body. And I'm not doing every stretch. There's a whole lot more. I'm not doing every release. There's a whole lot more, but I'm just kind of hitting the ones that I like. So for the glutes, you want to sit on the foam roller. And there's two choices. You can sit with it horizontal across, or you can sit with it this way. So I'm gonna do two different releases, one for the glutes and one more for the lateral rotators. I like a crosswise for the glutes and then lengthwise for the lateral hip rotators. But basically with the glutes, what you want to do is you're sitting crosswise and you're going from your sitting bones to your pelvic bones, to your iliac crest. So if you think about where your glutes go, if you think about your sacrum at the bottom of your spine, they attach right into that sacrum. So I'm working that area, just up and down. My hands are behind me. And then if you find a spot, and you probably will, you can work one side. If you find a spot, you can do some movement of your leg. I can find a pretty good spot. Oh yeah, pretty close to my sitting bone. So you can do one side, roll, and then go to the other side, just lean to the other side, right along your sacrum, right along the outside edge of your sacrum. All the way down to your sitting bone, all the way up to your iliac crest. You can lean back a little bit to change it. You can sit up a little bit to change it. Okay, so now let's do the lateral hip rotators. The hip rotator that you've probably heard of is the piriformis muscle. So that's kind of where we're working. The piriformis goes from your sacrum over to your hip joint. So that's the area that we're working right in here. So it's a little bit further out than what we just did. And like I said, I like the foam roller this way for this one. And then you're going to get into that position. You want to put it kind of in the foam roller so that there's not too much here. And then you're going to cross your ankle over your knee on one side, if you can. And it might be a little bit of a balance issue, just like that. And then what you're going to do is work basically from your sacrum over into your hip joint. And I can find a spot right in that hip joint that's pretty intense. I'm going to hang out there. I'm really close to my hip joint. And then a couple things you can do. One is you can push this knee down. I can lean back a little bit. I can move forward. I can just do small rolls. Just massaging into those points. Oh. Another reason to do this now, great time to do this, is because we can't get massages. Unless you happen to be partnered with a massage therapist, you're pretty lucky. So this is it doesn't take the place of hands-on, but it's pretty darn good. Okay, let's go to the other side. And if you want to try this with the roller horizontal, you can try too. I just feel like this gets into it more. Oh, that's a pretty good spot there for me. And hang out there. See, if I lean forward a lot, I can feel that big time. Okay, and then come off gently, gracefully. Let's try the lateral hips. So I'm moving even further laterally. So now what I'm working on is basically the gluteus medius muscle, which is right on the side here. And so for this one, you're gonna put your foam roller crosswise and just put the side of your hip right on there. And then here, what we're doing is we're going from the pelvis to the top of the outer thigh. So from that iliac crest bone to the top of the outer thigh, right there. And you can go forward and roll, and you can go back and roll. You can move your leg into internal and external rotation. I don't see my foot, so basically I'm doing this. Oh, that's a good one. Forward and back I like, and then up and down. And let's go to the other side. And you see what I mean by, the transitions, you got to use your core. You got to move correctly. Okay. So same thing here. You're going to go from the top of the iliac crest to the top of the hip joint. Ah, that one feels good. I can go move my leg a little bit. So give yourself permission to make stuff up. Move the way you want to move. I like that front one. Then we'll touch on the hip flexors. I don't think this is the best way to get to the hip flexors, the big psoas muscle and the rectus femoris, but you can get to them. The hip flexor, the psoas muscle starts at your spine, on the outside, on the outer part of your spine, and runs this way over to your hip joint. So that's what we're working on. And so I find that if I put the foam roller and I just lie, let's see, how do I do this differently every time. So this is going to get into the hip flexor a little bit. And you can, I don't think this is the best, like I said, the best way to get the hip flexor, but I think a ball is better for that. But I'm getting into just inside that bone, that front hip bone, and rolling from side to side. And I can feel it a little bit. You can kind of come up a little bit. And then you can do the other side. Now, one thing I do like with the ball for the hip flexors is you can do a little simple release. And that is, you're going to lie on your back with the foam roller. So your mid back is on the ground and the foam roller is across your sacrum, like so. And so to stretch my left hip flexor, I straighten this leg, and using my core, I bring my other leg up, knee towards my chest. Push out energy towards into the straight leg, and that should feel like a gentle stretch right in through your hip flexor. So that's a nice gentle way to get to the hip flexors. And hold for a few breaths. And then try the other side. So put that bent leg down. Bring the other leg into your chest. Straighten. Push energy out through that straight leg. And then if you want a little bit more, you can raise your arm up, the arm of the straight leg side, and you can bring it a little bit over to the opposite side. I don't know how much you can see here. Oh yeah, that's sweet. Okay, and then both feet on the ground. Just allow the foam roller to roll towards your feet, and then come up. Okay, next we're gonna do quadriceps. These big guys. So this is an easy one, this is a fun one, and it can be kind of tender. So basically you're gonna be face down, and you're gonna roll from your knees up to your hips and vice versa. So you can just come down. That's the starting point. And then you can roll. So this one, since this is a long muscle, you can take it in thirds if you want to, but it would be worth just seeing how it feels to roll all the way down to just above your knee and back up, like so. Then find a spot, about right there. A couple things you can do here. One is to bend your knees, straighten your knees. You can do one at a time or both at the same time. You can also roll in and out. You can also roll in and out with movement. You can also bend and straighten with movement. Wah. Now, notice what my back is doing. I'm not really arching my back. I want to bring my belly button towards my spine and hold my spine stable. Oh. Okay. And you want to spend between a minute and 2 minutes on each group, each muscle group. That's about right, generally. Okay, let's do the inner thigh. That's a nice one too. So on this one, you're going to start with your foam roller next to you, and you're going to lie down, and then you're going to put your leg like so. Bend your knee at 90 degrees, like so. And then we're working the inner thigh. So what we want to do is we want to go from the groin down to the knee. And the more weight you put on the roller versus your forearms, the more intense you're going to feel it. If you find a spot right there, then you can straighten your leg. And you can roll a little bit forward and back. You can bend and straighten. That's kind of intense. Roll all the way to the top there. You might find some good spots right at the attachments at the groin. And then let's move to the other side. So you lie down next to it, put your leg up. That's the position. Oh. All the way to the groin, yeah. So in this is very different from side to side for me. I feel it much more up high on this side. Straighten your leg. Roll a little bit. Roll in, roll out. Oh. Bend your knee. Straighten. Whatever works for you. Okay, so that's inner thigh. Let's move to the hamstrings. And again, the hamstrings are pretty classic. Hamstrings are back of your thigh from your sitting bones down to your knees. So we can start actually just working the sitting bone area. And so just sit on your foam roller and feel those sitting bones, the ischial tuberosities. Just kind of roll forward and back right on there. That's a nice one. You can bend your knees and do it. You can roll side to side. So just really getting right into those sitting bones where a lot of muscles attach. Okay, and so then moving on to the hamstrings. Again, the hamstrings are big muscles, long muscles, and so I would say it's worth it to go up and down the whole way once or twice, but then you can work in thirds if you want to. So hands behind, and then just roll. I'm kind of moving my hands as I go up and down the hamstrings. If you if you bring your toes towards your body, you're going to get a little bit of a different stretch. Okay, I feel some big time stuff right in here, so I'm going to roll back and forth just a little bit here. I can point and flex my toes. That doesn't do too much. I can roll in and out. That does a lot. So then I can find a spot on, so the outer hamstring, and roll back and forth on it. Get fairly close to your knees on this one. Again, I'm using my core. Feels pretty good. Okay, so that's hamstrings. Let's do the lower leg. Let's do the shin and the calf. So the shins are surprisingly tender. So what you're going to do here is you're just going to kneel on the roller. Your knees are a little bit forward of the roller. And again, what are we doing with our core? We're stabilizing it so it doesn't move. I don't want that. I don't want this. I want my core, I want to be in a neutral spine basically. And then what we're going to do is just going to go down to our ankles and up to our knees. If you point your toes in, that makes you roll a little bit to the outer part of your shin. That's nice. I actually like, you have a choice of doing it this way or one leg at a time. And I actually like one leg at a time because I can get more into that outer shin area. And that's where my trigger points tension is. I can move my foot around. And then go to the other side if you're trying just one at a time. And obviously, if your knees don't bend that much, you're going to have to change the configuration a little bit. But use your core all the time. Okay. Oh yeah, that feels really good. That feels really loosens up my ankles and my ability to flex and point my feet. Okay, so let's do the calves. So the calves start a little bit like the hamstrings, but basically you're in the lower part. So you're like this, lift up your hips a little bit and go from your ankles to just below your knees. And if you turn your feet out, you're going to get a little bit to those outer calves. Turn your feet in, you're going to get to the inner calves. Obviously, it's much less if you have your butt down, but it's easier on your arms. To go to 45? Okay, so that highlights a lot of things that you can do with the foam roller. There's a lot more. We didn't do, a couple of things we didn't do, and I can, one of them you might notice is I didn't do the iliotibial band. That's kind of a classic one that I tell a lot of people to do, but I think it's just too painful. And I think there's better ways to get to the iliotibial band. I think that's just kind of smushing some really thin layer of fascia. And I don't think it's the best way to get to it. I think kind of rolling on a ball, you can work on it. Doing suction cups on it is good. I think that's better for the iliotibial band than just rolling it out. I just think that's too much, at least for me. You can try it if you want to. A couple other ones that I just didn't do because of time. Pectoral muscles are nice to do. And we can talk about that another time if you want to. What else? Well, I think I hit most of the areas. So take this with you. I think that it's really a good practice to do every day a little bit. You can spend 10-15 minutes with the roller, and it can really help to release the fascia and the muscles in your body. And